And Nigel Farage has confirmed he is open to a deal with Rupert Lowe and restore Britain after Reform leader vowed to build a broad coalition to unite the right.
Well, Restore Britain and their leader, Rupert Lowe, said the two parties should work together, but is reportedly only willing to agree to a pact if Nigel Farage backs 5 key policies, including no cabinet permissions for former Conservatives who held office and a referendum on the death penalty.
Yes, indeed. In the last hour, Nigel Farage said he has reached out to Rupert Lowe to have a conversation.
Well, there you go. This is GB News Originals. I'm Emily Carver. Please do give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. And do leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Do you think...
I was waiting to hear back.
You know, you could see a situation where Restore, without the hope of winning anything outside Great Yarmouth, I mean, literally without a hope of winning a single seat in the country, could do us great harm. And I think online you will see a lot of Restore potential voters now beginning to worry about the impact that might have. So look, I'll finalise that by saying if it was the offer of a deal, it came in a very unusual way. I have responded to it potentially, you know, with an open mind, as I would, but I'm certainly not going to be ditching people that I view to be allies and a great asset.
Well, in a twist to the tale, on Twitter, Rupert Lowe has claimed that Nigel Farage has not in fact reached out to him and instead said, "We'll call later."
OK, joining us now is a co-founder of JL Partners, Tom Lubbock. Tom Lubbock, thank you for joining us. Unite the right. I mean, will it happen? Will it work? And how long will they stay united?
Afternoon, Dawn. Look, I think the key thing is that if the right bloc in British politics is divided going into the next election, that makes the job of a left-wing coalition much, much easier. It's absolutely vital that some sort of united front happens on the right. Now, what that looks like, I don't know. I don't know if it's more important to unite Conservative and Reform or what part Restore play in that. But I can tell you that we've seen this before in elections. When the right is divided, it gets beaten at elections.
I don't know what JL Partners has the current trends on, but it looks like Reform is around 25, the Tories are around 20, and Restore is around 4 or 5. Is there a real risk to Reform? Because Reform was at 30% before Restore came along, and now there's been a significant dip in Reform. Do you think that that's attributable to Restore?
Yeah, it's a tailing off of the Reform vote from a very, very high point. Look, I think they're still competitive with Labour. They're still vying for first place, which is incredible considering the journey they've been on. And the bigger danger is that we think of things, we look at the state of the race now, we look at where things are now, rather than thinking ahead to an actual campaign where, as you just heard Nigel in your montage there, Nigel Farage say, well, it's going to be a choice between him or Andy Burnham. And look, I think that will really clarify minds, and that's a very strong argument and gives Reform a lot of upside. So still plenty of upside there for Reform.
OK, Tom, thank you so much for joining us. That's co-founder of JL Partners, Tom Lubbock there.
Yeah, they've also got to contend with incumbency, which is another hurdle. I'm going from just 5 seats won at the last general election, so 326 would be unprecedented. But, you know, we do live in unprecedented...
We have to ask you about what happened this weekend with Rupert Lowe from Restore Britain. He has put a video out saying he essentially wants to start negotiations with you. What's your initial response to that video? Do you welcome his offer?
Look, Nigel put out a statement yesterday. We welcome and want to talk to any political party that shares the values that we espouse, that Nigel's fought for decades, that I've dedicated my life to. And some of the things you talked about, you know, whether it's a secure border, as I said, we're the only major party demanding that we launch a military operation, ensure no vessels make it to, unauthorized vessels make it to our shores. We want to deport every single illegal migrant, Operation Restoring Justice. We've already published that document. We want to build a lot more prisons, deport foreign nationals, uphold law and order. We want taxes to come down. And I will say this too, I know enough about British history to know that coalition governments, you know, these sort of cooperations, if such a scenario were to come to pass, look, nobody gets what they want. They never achieve anything remotely useful. You know that. So what it comes down to is under a first past the post system, I think the next general election, it's clear, is going to come down to a battle between Labour and Reform. Reform is the only party with a realistic chance of winning a majority under a first past the post system. And so what we'd say is, look, we're going to work really, really hard to convince everybody watching this who shares the values that we just talked about to vote for Reform. That's what we're fighting to do. We're going to work really hard to earn their vote.
So that's a no to a deal with Restore, is it? Because we've got a number of viewers this morning saying, please put country before party, unite the right and take the fight to Labour.
Yeah, look, so as I said, first of all, it's Nigel's, all of these things are Nigel's decision. And when you look at, having spoken to him yesterday and you look at the statement he put out a statement that reflected what we were talking about internally. In the end, we're happy to talk to any other political party that shares those values. But that notwithstanding, it is my personal view that history shows in this country, again, if we're talking about putting country before party, etc., history shows the only government that actually achieves substantial things in this country, the sort that we're going to need, by the way, because God only knows we're going to be in an awful state whenever the next general election comes. So whether that be Thatcher's government that did a lot of things that, quite a lot of us like, whether it was Blair's government, which is they did appalling things, but, was highly effective at doing those appalling things. They come when there's a party with a majority and a clear mandate to do those things. So we're not closing any doors, just to be crystal clear. Nigel's statement, I think, was clear about that. But I maintain the point that it's up to Reform, and this is really on us, to convince everyone in the country, all the patriots in the country who want secure borders, who want mass deportations, who want the British people to come first. We've got to go out there and earn their vote.
The right-wing civil war that could hand Labour decades of power unopposed. Welcome back to Britain Underneath, the home where we strip away the parliamentary theatre, look behind the mahogany doors, and give you the cold, unvarnished truth about power in Westminster. Before we venture into the total chaos consuming the Conservative movement, do take a brief second to subscribe to Britain Underneath. Joining our community ensures you never miss a single deep dive into what is really driving the United Kingdom forward, and it helps this independent channel keep delivering the sharp analysis you deserve. Now, let us dive straight into the drama unfolding at the highest levels of British politics. If there is one absolute rule of British electoral math under our first-past-the-post system, it is that a divided movement is a dead movement. History does not lie. Whenever the right fragments, Labour marches into Downing Street with a comfortable majority and stays there for a generation. Yet right now, as you watch this, an ego-driven political split is threatening to ensure Labour remains in government for the foreseeable future. The feud between Nigel Farage of Reform UK and Rupert Lowe of Restore Britain has escalated into an all-out civil war for the soul of the traditional electorate. To truly grasp the magnitude of this fracture, we must look at the numbers. Reform UK had built up an impressive wave of momentum, pulling in nearly 30% in national tracking. But then came Rupert Lowe and the formal launch of Restore Britain. Almost overnight, Reform saw its polling numbers drop to around 25%, while Restore Britain carved out a 4 to 5% wedge of the electorate. 5% might sound modest on paper, but under our voting system, 5% is the precise margin that determines whether a candidate wins a seat or hands it on a silver platter to the opposing party. Rupert Lowe, the Member of Parliament for Great Yarmouth, officially extended an olive branch to Nigel Farage. In a video released across social media, Lowe framed his proposal as a patriotic imperative. He called for personal grievances to be brushed aside, arguing that if both parties fail to unite, the left will govern unchallenged. But Lowe did not just offer a hand, he attached heavy strings. He presented 5 non-negotiable policy demands to Reform UK. These include a national referendum on the death penalty, a total ban on cabinet posts for former Conservative ministers, sweeping public expenditure cuts, and an ironclad commitment to mass deportations. Nigel Farage publicly claimed he responded with an open mind and reached out to hold a discussion. But in true, unscripted Westminster fashion, Lowe immediately publicly contradicted Farage, stating that no real conversation had occurred, only a brief message stating they would talk later. Behind the scenes, the tension is palpable. Farage is an experienced political campaigner who understands that aligning too closely with extreme policy pledges could completely derail Reform's attempt to present itself as a mainstream party capable of forming a government. On the other hand, Lowe is attempting to frame Farage as soft, overly compromising, and part of the very establishment he once promised to disrupt. Before we explore how this standoff plays out, please take a quick moment to hit that subscribe button if you are enjoying this breakdown. It takes just a fraction of a second, but it makes a massive difference in supporting independent analysis on Britain Underneath. Take a deep breath, stay informed with us, and let us continue tracking this incredible story. The reaction from inside the Reform UK camp speaks volumes about the panic setting in. Zia Yusuf, a key strategist for Reform, stepped out to throw cold water on the idea of a formal pact. Appearing across major broadcast outlets, Yusuf argued that political coalitions in the United Kingdom are notoriously ineffective. He pointed to historical precedents like Margaret Thatcher and Tony Blair, asserting that real transformative change only happens when a single party secures an absolute majority with an absolute mandate, with a decisive mandate. In short, Reform's official stance is that voters who want a change in direction should not waste their votes on smaller fringe outfits, but instead unite behind Reform to defeat Labour directly. However, that argument ignores the stark reality of how elections are won on the ground. Reform UK currently holds a handful of seats in Parliament. Moving from 5 seats to the 326 required for an absolute majority would represent an unprecedented shock in modern parliamentary history. By refusing to entertain electoral pacts or stand-down agreements in key constituencies, Farage risks running headfirst into the exact same trap that crippled right-leaning parties in previous election cycles. If Restore Britain stands candidates across hundreds of constituencies, they will not win those seats. Aside from Lowe's stronghold in Great Yarmouth, Restore Britain lacks the organisational infrastructure to win a broad parliamentary presence. What they do possess, however, is the power to act as a spoiler. By pulling 4 or 5% of core patriotic anti-establishment voters away from Reform UK, Lowe effectively ensures that Labour candidates will walk through the middle and take those seats on split votes. This raises an uncomfortable question that few in mainstream political media are willing to ask directly. Is this feud truly about ideological policy differences, or is it fundamentally about personal dominance and pride? Rupert Lowe was elected as a Reform MP before a bitter public fallout with party leadership led to his suspension and eventual creation of Restore Britain. The animosity between the two camps is deep, personal, and bitter. Farage is accustomed to being the undisputed figurehead of the insurgent right. He is not a man who easily shares a stage, let alone allows a former subordinate to dictate policy terms to him on national television. Meanwhile, Labour strategists are watching this unfolding spectacle with absolute delight. Every minute that Farage and Lowe spend trading insults online and arguing over television interviews is a minute they are not spending holding the current administration accountable on taxes, energy costs, public services and border management. A divided opposition is the greatest gift any governing party could ever hope to receive. As the political landscape continues to shift, voters who align with the right are left facing an agonising dilemma. Do they stick with Nigel Farage and Reform UK, placing their faith in a party striving for mainstream legitimacy, and a parliamentary majority? Or do they back Rupert Lowe and restore Britain, choosing a more uncompromising, radical platform, even if it guarantees a fractured vote and an opposition that remains stranded in the political wilderness? There are no easy answers, but one thing is indisputable. The upcoming months will dictate the trajectory of British politics for the next decade. If these two figures cannot find a way to compromise, the mathematical reality of our voting system will make the decision for them. Please take a moment to encourage the channel by subscribing to Britain Underneath today. Your support is vital in helping us bring you clear, unfiltered political analysis without the corporate spin. Make sure to hit the notification bell so you never miss our updates. Take a breath, stay informed, and drop your thoughts in the comments section below. We want to hear from you. Do you think Farage should accept Lowe's conditions, or is reform right to stand alone? Thank you for watching, and be sure to return for our next video as we continue to uncover what is happening underneath British politics.